but our good friend Adam Rittenberg from ESPN joins Craig Smoke, David Smoke on 365 Sports. Adam, I mean, I know you've covered college football for a long, long time, and then everything ramped up, COVID, and then transfer portal, then NIL. It seems like now, I don't think you could take a day off, can you? It's just unbelievable, and then you throw in Belichick, Rich Rod, and possibly Dan Mullen at UNLV over the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's an interesting coaching cycle, right, David, because it hasn't been high in volume and not like overly robust, but certainly the hires have been notable, as you mentioned. Now, this is always a busy time with that, but when you couple it with the portal and high school recruiting just wrapped up, and you got the playoffs to prepare for. I mean, just looking ahead, we've got a month of playoff, which is exciting, but it's also a little bit daunting that, hey, we're nowhere near the finish line. But this is the best part of the year. This is the part that I know I get really excited about as somebody who just hasn't felt that the college football postseason has matched the regular season. And now I think we're going to get much more of that with more teams and more games and just a longer format here beginning next Friday.
Adam, there was the thought that NIL and transfer portal would run away a lot of coaches, and in some cases it has. You see a guy like a Gus Malzahn maybe beating UCF to the punch and taking a job elsewhere and a step down to OC, but seeing a guy like Belichick now come to college football, does that open the floodgates maybe for similar moves of pros now looking at the landscape and going, this is actually more up my alley than the old traditional way? And just your thoughts in general on the Belichick move, just how massive of a swing do you think this was for UNC?
Yeah, it's certainly one that's going to get a lot of attention. It's not a guy that we thought would ever come to the college ranks, although in talking to some coaches that have worked for him or know him, he really is genuinely a college football fan. Brett Bielema was telling me that when he was there with the Patriots, he'd have a different college sweatshirt on every day, teams that he really admired. And so he's a guy that's been connected to it. And I talked to Brian Kelly earlier today, and he said obviously when he came down to LSU, recently, he didn't know that he was looking to go back in college, but he definitely was looking to get back into coaching. So it could be partly due to the NFL market and maybe feeling like this is his best opportunity, but also feeling that, hey, I can exist in this space because the personnel element has changed to be a little bit more like the NFL. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do and how long he wants to do it. And obviously North Carolina seems to be supporting him more so than it has any other coaches, and we'll see if this works. It's certainly going to be interesting.
You mentioned it's more like the NFL. It actually is more pro football than I think the NFL, and dealing with the lack of actual contracts, which I still think they somehow have to figure that out when it comes to NIL, whatever, and the portal. But it used to be if you're a really, really good college football coach, Nick Saban or others, you were always maybe Pete Carroll looking at that NFL like that was the final destination. Could it actually not so much go reverse, but we could see this more often?
Well, the thing that I would caution is that until, Smokey, there's some more controls in the college space, I don't know how many NFL coaches are going to want to do this, especially guys that are already at that level, because they don't have to recruit. Yep. And their jobs are at least out of season, much more normal than the college assistant coaches are. Now there's some changes and you don't have December recruiting as much, but the college coach job, at least from the guys I talk to, is much more all encompassing, and you're doing camps and you're doing spring recruiting and the roster is always changing. Whereas in the pro, if you're a coach, other than evaluating players for the draft as an assistant coach, your off-field or off-season life is pretty easy. At least relative to some of these college coaches. So maybe at the top, it's something that more guys would be interested in, but I still feel like a lot of the college coaches will tell you that it's still chaos. And as Brian Kelly told me today, maybe Bill Belichick is the right coach to handle the chaos that some of us are struggling with.
So there was that big splash, Adam, but interesting to see a couple of Big 12 schools go with old coaches of theirs. I mean, not just once, but twice. West Virginia with Rich Rodriguez and UCF with Scott Frost. I think both very interesting moves. What say you, and how surprised are you to see – oh, my mic fell. How surprised are you to see both schools decide to go back into the Wayback Machine?
Not really surprised by either. Less surprised by West Virginia. I really, I did a coaching list for that search, and Rich was the first name I had. In large part because I just felt like it was time. And Neil Brown was fine there. Wasn't a disaster by any means, but I think West Virginia fans wanted to get somebody in who had a stronger connection to the past and could sort of meet expectations that some people feel are out of whack for the actual resources in the program. I think the thing that you guys understand, and fans do too, but maybe they need a reminder. The next coach always gets more. So that happened today with Bill Belichick getting more than Mac Brown. Rich Rod will get more than Neil Brown did. And I think part of the fact is, hey, we believe in this guy. We know what this guy can do. He nearly got us to the national championship game back in 2007. So we're going to support him at a level that we feel like he has earned as the coach. And then Scott Frost, similarly at UCF, even though they didn't anticipate a change until Gus took the coordinator job at Florida State, they're going to go all in on Scott Frost because he brings them back to a time when they were on top of the college football world for a little bit. So, definitely some nostalgia hires. In a sense, I think Rich has earned this a little bit more just because of what he did at Jacksonville State and, kind of getting through he was a coordinator at ULM not that long ago, guys, and now he's back in the Big 12. So I really think whatever you think of Rich Rodriguez, he has earned this opportunity. Has Scott Frost? I don't know. I think I'm certainly skeptical after the way that it went at Nebraska, but we also do remember the good work he did at UCF, and that's why he's getting this chance again.
It also doesn't hurt when a fan base is thirsty to win again, right? When it comes to Rich Rod, because when he left, as you meant, he left under the dark of night, and we have a couple of emails. We have a bunch of great Mountaineers fans that are on this chat room or in the YouTube channel. I mean. And they were so close, and people were so frustrated. But the thirst to win will change the perspective of maybe fans if they feel like somebody can get them back to where they were.
No doubt. And I mean, again, it's been a long time, and I think they've seen Rich Rod go through it a bit. The way it ended at Arizona, and getting let go at ULM, and then obviously finding himself at Jacksonville State here. I mean, he's really kind of earned his way back, and I think he represents a time that West Virginia was rolling, and while that was a very difficult period, I remember that having covered Rich at Michigan. I think there's certainly a forgiveness that has taken place now, and they're ready to get back to ideally the way it was in 2007. I think it's going to be hard to do in the Big 12, but it's going to be exciting to see if Rich can do it.
So Adam, this job never came open, but it was looking dicey there at the end of last week. Oklahoma State. Today, Mike Gundy's hiring Doug Meacham as his new offensive coordinator. But how hot was that last week in terms of kind of the both sides sort of coming out publicly and talking about ultimatums and demands and all of this? How ugly did it get in your estimation? And is this a tenable situation moving forward between Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously going into next year very much as a hot seat situation, like many jobs are around the country. But it definitely looked like something that might end in a divorce, which was stunning. I just never got the sense that Oklahoma State as a university wanted to do that. Did some of the regents, perhaps they certainly weren't happy with the way the season went. But I think that as a university, the way that it would have looked for a coach as meaningful to the identity of Oklahoma State athletics as Mike Gundy has been, 18 straight seasons with bowl appearances, no disastrous seasons. You're really gonna fire him after one disastrous season over a contract issue. That would have been a really, really rough end to his tenure. And I think, quite frankly, a very bad look for Oklahoma State. So I'm glad that they found a way to work around this, and we'll see if Mike can get it right, because anything resembling what we saw this year is going to result in a change there in Stillwater.
Adam, I was on the phone with one of our sponsors, Edward Jones, is back with Ben Erlinson. He called me earlier today, and one of the things he brought up, and I didn't think about this, the first-round home games happened to be at 3 massive stadiums: Penn State, Texas, and Ohio State, with 104, 5, 8, 10,000 in each stadium. Notre Dame's, of course, not nearly that big, but still an old relic of a great stadium. I didn't think about that when those came out. Do you think the seedings just happened to be those schools were at home, or do you think there was any rhyme and reason with that?
No, and I mean, Notre Dame's actually up to 80, and they've renovated the stadium, Smokey. We got to get you up there for a game. It's a great place to see a game.
I'd love it.
Friday. Yep. But no, I don't think so. I do wonder, what maybe in the future. We had a lot of discussion last weekend about, do they keep this exact format, or do they, get away, do away with the conference champions, top 4 getting the buys into the quarterfinals. One idea, and I got to give Jerry Palm credit for this over at CBS, was hosting radio the other day, and he brought this up. Why not just have the seedings go 1 through 12, but then if you're not a conference champion in the top 4, you're guaranteed a home campus game. I think that would be a really cool thing to see. So, for example, if Arizona State, is not a top 4 team, and we're not giving them a bye into the quarterfinal, but they're then hosting a campus site game. I'd love to see that. So I think as this thing evolves, you're going to have some different tweaks to it. But I think those 4 settings, you couldn't ask for a whole lot better for the very first round of campus games, because I think for a lot of people, I mean, we're all excited to see all the rounds of this thing, but I think the first round on campus postseason for the first time is really going to generate a lot of attention.
Yeah, it's historic. Those stadiums all have an unbelievable history, not to mention a massive amount of capacity. And also, as you mentioned, I actually walked around Notre Dame Stadium back, it was around 6 years ago or so, because they were hosting a women's regional, and Baylor was playing there. And I remember flying into Chicago, then I was on campus in Notre Dame for quite some time, for 3 or 4 days. That was, man, and I tell you what, that's just an amazing campus. It was like gloomy, like now here it is in Texas, gloomy, but I really loved it. So Adam, they're already talking about 14. In your own personal preference, what would you and how would you like to see a national championship, however it is, playoff or whatever, settled?
Again, I'm not against the current format. I would do some different things with the seeding.
Yeah.
I just can't get all broken up, guys, about a 9-3 team, regardless of what league it's in. I just think, I'm okay with a system that is designed to be more diverse in terms of different parts of the country and different leagues being represented, even if the pathways to get in the playoff aren't equal. So, I understand, being an SEC coach and feeling like every game is a war and that your league is so much tougher than the other leagues. Well, yeah, it's a different path for you than it is for other leagues. That's okay in my book. And if you don't like it, go coach in the ACC or the Big 12 or the Mountain West or whatever league you want, because the SEC is going to be different. It doesn't mean you're entitled to 4 or 5 teams every single year. So I'm okay with 12. If it goes to 14, I would imagine there's going to be more guaranteed spots for the Big 10 and the SEC, and the other conferences will still be represented, but in a pretty small sliver of the overall field.
Do you think that Greg Sankey has too much power in college football, or is that just the way it is? And when he says something, it does seem to stick, and it does seem to be sometimes a little bit dark.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just been interesting to see how he's approached the job versus his predecessor, Mike Slive, who was much more understated but had a louder voice behind the scenes. Jim Delaney at times had a loud voice publicly, but I don't know if anyone's really taken this much of a public approach to lobby for the league, and also like to your point, cast these warning shots of, if this doesn't happen, then we're going to basically take our ball and go home. So I think Greg is advocating for his league. I get it, that's his job, but you're also one of the people that created a system that was designed to diversify the playoff and bring in more people into that tent. So you got to live with it sometimes when your league is not that good. And let's just face it, this year was not a banner year for the SEC. It doesn't mean that they won't have a team that will win the national championship. It's very possible. But this is not a memorable year for the SEC that we're going to look back and say, oh, my God, remember when the SEC was dominating college football? That didn't happen this year. That's okay. It might happen next year. But I just don't think that the entire sport has to bend itself to satisfy the SEC and Greg Sankey.
Hey, man, I know you gave us time, had a busy schedule. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time and love what you write, and also love reading it, too. Thank you.
You bet, guys. Thanks for having me.
Adam Rittenberg, ESPN, had a busy day today. Thank you for his time.